All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the August 10th Agent Sandbox meeting. I'm your host, Janet. And today we have a few announcements and discussion topics. The first announcement is that we have another new release, V 0.5.4. We're going to have another release this week as well. And quick update on what's new in 0.5.4. We made some changes to the suspended condition to comply with the Kubernetes convention. So previously, the condition will be cleared after it's not suspended, but the conventional way is to keep the status but flip the boolean from the status of the boolean in the status from true to false instead of clearing the field or false to true. And there are also a bunch of performance updates, which is one of our key focus in Agent Sandbox. Now we want faster and more scalable sandboxes. And then I'm also going to paste the link to the agenda in the chat so folks can check it out. And then another topic is that V1 Alpha 1 API is going away. We're going to remove that. We shipped the script for migrating the object in etcd from V1 Alpha 1 to V1 Beta 1, and the latest release is also only shipping V1 Beta 1, only serving V1 Beta 1 objects. So if you're only using new API, or if you're installing only the new API, or if you're upgrading, you'll need to follow the script to drop the V1 Alpha 1 object. And then I think the next major release, we're going to drop it. And this will also have some performance improvement after this is dropped. Let's see, Carlos is updating the KubeCon talks related to Agent Sandbox. So we also have the SIGAPS talk in which is the maintainer track. That will also include the Agent Sandbox.
Cool. Is that you have a link for that? It's in the schedule.
Yeah, I can
Maintainers is
update.
separate.
Yeah, I can update the link.
Okay.
This is still the KubeCon talk, just a different track, not the maintainer summit.
Okay. Good.
Cool. And okay, then we can talk about this one. Victor, are you still there?
Sorry. This is someone else. It's not my bug.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hi, this is mine. My name is Varsha, and I'm also from Red Hat, but we have been working on NVIDIA OpenShell. So a little bit background up on this. I know previously around last year, there was a PR merged in Agent Sandbox talking about pod disruption budget. And on the OpenShell side, we have a Kubernetes driver. OpenShell, to be very brief, is an sandbox runtime for single and multi-node. For the multi-node Kubernetes, behind the scenes, we use Agent Sandbox to spin up sandboxes for use cases. And our one of the valid scenario is when, due to any infrastructure reason, a pod gets evicted, a pod which is running a sandbox. In that case, we would like to have certain guardrails or conditions to protect the users using pod disruption values. I think around last year, a PR got merged on the documentation side, which talks in depth about creating pod disruption budgets and managing it manually. And this issue or this feature request is to just bring it up to the community on what thoughts are on managing pod disruption budget through a controller in Agent Sandbox. So that would enable us to ensure that the sandbox at least lives for a certain amount of time based on whatever the infrastructure admin sets it as. And yeah, that's about the issue. I just wanted to say, I know there have been questions a bit about how we want to implement this in controller in terms of the status and conditions, and those are absolutely valid questions. I can get back on that today. I'm just starting the day, so I can get back that on today, but I just wanted to bring this up to the community and just check with the maintainers if this is something as a feature we would like to have it in Agent Sandbox or not. If so, we can start discussion more on getting feature details on this.
Yeah, I think originally we discussed this, but initially we only added as a manual step instead of a part of the controller, is that this PDB also affects the cluster upgrade. So basically, you will block the node draining, and given that every sandbox is just one pod and they cannot be disrupted, this will affect the whole cluster. That's the main reason why we didn't add that. But I think this might be an opt-in feature, potentially part of the sandbox template instead of in the sandbox. Is that what you're thinking as well?
Yeah. So regarding the cluster maintenance, that was a valid reason, and the options which we were thinking was exactly as you said, probably opt-in or have some kind of time-bounded approach for this. But if opt-in makes sense, yeah, definitely. Like, I definitely acknowledge the cluster maintenance issue, and I can create a document where we can discuss about the possible scenarios to mitigate this, whether to have an opt-in approach or whether a time-bounded approach would make more sense. So yeah. Carlos?
Yeah, I'm reading the same thing as Janet said. When you are going to upgrade a node and this pod is located there, like PDB is usually simple use case where are that you are doing an upgrade on a node and then you want to make sure that another node picks up the workload, and then it's okay to delete this pod, like being available equals 1, and then you delete the pod and the node, and then the other one, the workload continues working. So I want to get more of the use case scenario, like of Sandbox when it's 1. Like if the agent is working on a node, and you need to upgrade, you need to kill a node, what is the the use case that you're coming from the real world of like, is it the project in charge of like creating the extra agent somewhere else, put the state over there, wait for it, and then do you delete this one? I don't see that coordination where like deployments have that coordination, right? You have replica too. This one wouldn't have replica. So I don't see the user experience use case here. I just see that I want the pod to have it, but I don't know how the user experience is going to work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please go ahead.
So there are two scenarios where the user runs the agent. One is the agent running inside the sandbox. The second scenario is where the agent runs outside the sandbox, and then we have a downward API where agent requests for a sandbox creation, where the sandbox just runs the external tools or any other tool calls which are stateful. So we are gearing towards the second scenario, in the sense we are gearing customers to use the second scenario where your agent runs outside the sandbox and then your stateful tool calls are made inside the sandbox for any execution. Now, the use case is such that due to any reason, whether it's a node drain or whether due to infrastructure reasons, if a pod existing on a node gets evicted, the user also loses the stateful set of files which are existing in the sandbox, though we have the option of having external pod volumes. So the user experience which we would like to improve is on the sandbox side, at least providing a condition saying that this sandbox is about to get evicted. So you have this much amount of time, probably around 2 hours or 7 hours or whatever it is, to make sure that this particular sandbox existing in this node is backupped or is moved to another node. So it is not only during a cluster update, it can be due to any infrastructure reason that a particular node is drained. So the UX is essentially to give a condition or to explain to the users that this particular sandbox is about to get deleted, because there are two different personas. One is the infrastructure admin who is managing the Kubernetes cluster, and then there is a user who is running the sandbox. The user could be a human user or an agent. So the whole idea of this is to have a UX which says that this sandbox is about to get evicted or about to get deleted. So it's time that we either take certain action by contacting the infra admin or whatever the other personas, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah. So it's the use case of the sandbox being used for execution, I guess, on trusted code execution. Typically, what I see is those environments execute and complete. So the pod gets deleted, doesn't get running for a while. But in your case, maybe you're leaving them running for a while. But what you describe is the termination grace period, all this configuration about giving the signal. The PDB is more about the platform team organizing, like they don't disrupt the sandboxes that I guess are working as like taking workloads, taking work queues to execute. So I think it would be good to highlight that in the scenario, but I still don't see a clear or the budget restriction applicable. But I'll be my comments in the doc once you have it.
Sure, I can explain better through a comment, and also these are for long-running tasks or execution calls that the agent runs on the sandbox. So
That's what I said.
we don't have a concrete use case from a customer because we are also a dev team contributing to OpenShell, but these are some of the asks from the customer saying that we need a way to understand, or we need a signal to say that this particular pod running a sandbox is getting evicted, so that we can inform the infrastructure admin to make necessary changes or to back up or to perform certain actions. So that's where we were looking at in terms of having some kind of signal coming out of the agent sandbox, so that we can expose that on the OpenShell side to say that a particular pod is getting evicted, and it's we have certain kind of guardrails to prevent this from getting evicted through pod disruption volume. So this is the amount of time for you to take a backup or perform any other relevant action to the infra admin.
Okay, I'll leave others to comment before. I think Aditya, you have your hands up.
Yeah, Janet, why do you see this as a Sandbox template edition and not a Sandbox change?
So PDB, so basically I want to have better separation of concerns.
Yeah.
Because the people who create Sandbox have the privilege to create pods, but PDB is another layer that they can basically block the drain of the pod, which I think is more for admin to control. So I can imagine that the admin also want to allow certain shape of Sandbox and PDB, and they can use the template to control that.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I agree. I agree also with when I saw that maybe belongs in template, but I still yeah, the signal of like something is going down, that's I think Kubernetes should cover it. So I'm not sure what extra signal you need because the PDB is it this just asking for when the pod gets created a PDB resource associated with gets created, that would not give you a signal. That's protection. Is that clear?
Yes, so we
You ask
need
for a signal. Go ahead.
So creating a PDB and exposing this through conditions will help us have some kind of alerts to the infra admin to say that this pod is getting deleted and you have a protection of the specified duration to perform any necessary action. So it is, we are going to use it both as signal and per disruption budget as the protection to say that, to tell it to the infrastructure admin to say that this is the necessary time before which you can take a particular action.
But how is that different from just normal fields that are exist today in Kubernetes to give you the heads up of termination grace period, and for the app, the pod to act on that and knows the deadline when it goes down? Like that's where not what is missing from the standard pod fields and hooks that you need the protection and PDB. So I see two hands. Sorry, I keep talking with my hand up. Go ahead, Justin, Adita. I don't know who was first.
I think Justin is next. I think Aditya, is it a stale hand or a new hand?
Stale hand. Let me remove it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we don't have a very fully defined use case that we can all look at and understand. And I think what we've said in the past is, we're very open to examples that will put together this into the broader context, like show how this is going to be used. For now, just create the PDB by hand, like alongside the sandbox. And we can see, like, do you need it? Can you get away with termination, grace period seconds, pre-stop hooks, whatever it is? Like, let's see. And then, like, we've deliberately been very open on the examples, perhaps too open. Like, like we've let in very complicated, large examples so that we could have that discussion in this forum with an example that we could look at, right? So we can look at it and say, look, we try to do this. We put it together with the hook that wants to run on termination that backs it up to S3, and it turns out we don't have enough time because this is too slow, or whatever whatever the things are, then we can sort of discuss it very concretely. So I would very much encourage a sort of an example that shows me too, but I'm also guilty, that shows the whole thing, and then we can discuss it and see what changes need to be made and ground those changes in a very concrete scenario that we actually can see. Ideally lives in our repo so we can even test it.
All right, let's follow up in the issue, because we have Victor also want to talk about this one. Victor, are you still there?
Yep, I'm still here. So I opened the bug because I accidentally exposed an issue with the default setting for the shutdown policy being retained. And somehow all tests, including stress tests, they used pause image, which was infinite. And I used another image that actually finished after some time, like 20, 30 seconds. So pods became completed. They moved to completed state. And when I tried to run longevity load test, after a few minutes, even 2 minutes, I exposed an issue with the objects. When I stopped the load test, the cleanup took like few minutes. And the whole test was timed out. And I started to investigate what happened there. And just 800 objects were not deleted. And I'm not talking about kata containers or gvisor. It was just regular pods. So I started to investigate what happens, how to fix that. I did the workaround by setting the default shutdown policy. And then I just thought, wow, it could be an issue here. And from my investigation came out that there are resources left alone with the default setting of shutdown policy retained. And it can cause some issues because completed pods still have IP network, and depending on the sandbox, it can take resources. Like virtual machines will occupy vCPU, etc., etc. So leaving them retain in completed state, if we claim a lot of sandboxes, can just explode the resources of the workers in very fast. And it also is kind of security issue. From my personal investigation, and I'm not the white hat, black hat, I'm not experienced so much with the security. I just exposed that there are security vectors that can be used, like nothing special, but it's not just harmless bug. It's the resources, and it opens like a chain of such bugs can open a door to serious security leak. So I opened the bug and I proposed the fix. The fix was reviewed. I fixed some Copilot, CodeRabbit, and Aditya's comments. Just setting just for the worm pool sandboxes. If no one set the default policy, when they complete it, they automatically get the default policy like shutdown and TTL 0, because otherwise we have resource issues, and that should fix that. If someone want to keep sandboxes after they complete it, they can explicitly define the retain policy. And that's it. Relatively simple fix, but the issue itself looks for me that it could be complicated.
Yeah, I saw this is the bug you filed. Looks good. We can take a look.
Does it change the
Should
current
get this
behavior?
yeah.
No, right, Victor?
Current behavior have how I define that bad default configuration, because
Yeah, okay.
there is a controller have a few points where it checks the shutdown policy, and eventually today in the current configuration the default is retained. So if the pod run and completed, it still retains like alive with the resources and network, VPC, everything. A lot of, I say, security access and resources.
And this happens only under load.
Well, it's not like it happens only under load. You can
Encounter it.
You can encounter it in any situation, even a
Okay.
single sandbox, if it use the image that actually runs and finish and it's in completed state, the default settings is retained. So maybe the garbage collection will take place. I'm not an expert in the project, but it didn't took place at the same point. So it could take a long time before garbage collection of the objects will be executed, and the controller does nothing on the pods that don't have shutdown policy. Like it's an optional, and the default is retained, and the default is bad from my point of view. Again, I'm not a hacker, but I could try to explode to use that as a weak point, and that's not good, both from the security point of view and from the resource point of view, especially for the sandboxes like micro VMs, because every micro VM occupy some part of the CPU, even the firecracker, like quarter or some part. So if you run small load, then you just see like half of the resources already occupied. You don't
Incompleted
have
state?
them. Incompleted state.
I don't think so.
Well, it depends. I can test it again, but anyhow, you have a lot of objects left behind.
Yeah. It will be etcd. It will be etcd storage. I thought, yeah. I can take a look again. I thought that I had an example that pods were uncompleted and they were deleted automatically. I think by the controller, by the one. Yeah, by the controller. Not the expected behavior for others expert adjusting.
I think we might. I mentioned in the logs that it's about. It might be to do with keeping the. I mentioned in the chat. It might be about keeping the logs around, or being able to get the logs, or like having some indication that the pod is gone, that the pod has finished more than it just disappearing, right? So it might be you have to use it in conjunction with something else. And I can see that getting annoying. I actually put my hand up because I want to mention. As far as I can see, this would be a denial of service attack from someone that already has access to the cluster. So if this was a security issue, like you could get root on the cluster, then we should not discuss it here. But I think it's fine to discuss it here. Like I don't think it is a denial of service security issue, not a not a privilege escalation vulnerability or something like that. So. I'll certainly have a look. I think the other, Jenna, do you remember how? I think the other option, by the way, so the changing the default on the template effectively based on the surrounding object is kind of a weird thing to do from a sort of customer expectation perspective. The other option is we could effectively put something outside the template on the worm pool where we say, if you want to, we will auto collect for you or something like that, right? But you can also use your own controller to do it if you're aggregating the logs or whatever it is. But I'll take a look and try to figure it out. But that I think is the tension. Like, do we want the template defaults to vary based on what the surrounding object?
Yeah, I think for job we have a separate controller that does the garbage collection instead of having the job controller.
Yeah, that's usually
handling it.
Yeah. And by the way, that's my 2 cents is I do not get the project not get into the business of collecting logs.
All right, let's follow up in the issue NPR. And we are at time. Thanks everyone for joining us today. See you next time.
See you. Thank you.
Thanks.